Donald Trump um, was at the Operation Warp Speed press conference the other day. Now it is becoming clear, Emma, that this is just it's stunning. I don't know. I don't know really even how to express this. Apparently, what the Trump administration did in ordering vaccinations, and they seem to have really chosen a path and then ignored it despite what's happening. I mean, early on, they had, I don't know, maybe there was a half a dozen, maybe a little more different companies working on vaccinations, right? And on the outset, you don't necessarily know who is going to have an inside track, who is going to be more successful. So they basically said, we're going to place one bet on each. And that bet's going to be 100 million doses. And then as it seemed to move forward, as it became clear that Pfizer and Moderna were sort of having more success in their testing or had developed quicker for whatever reason, they went to the Trump administration and said, look, at least Pfizer, you should buy more. And the Trump administration, no, we're not interested. Apparently they did. They only bought 100 million doses from Pfizer and Moderna. Apparently they purchased 300 million doses. This is from Politico, from AstraZeneca. For whatever reason, it's unclear. Now, AstraZeneca, we're unclear as to why they do, but the outlook for the AstraZeneca vaccine at this point is mixed. Yeah. They are not using the mRNA technology. They're trying to address it in a different way, maybe a more traditional way, and they're not having as much success with it. There's another one out there, Johnson & Johnson, which supposedly would only take one shot and makes it easier to manufacture in some ways, but we still don't know. We don't have as much clarity on that.
But the Moderna and the Pfizer are the ones that seem to be the most successful being implemented in the UK right now, the Pfizer one. And to use your betting analogy, they were playing with house money. I mean, this is the time to spend government money, and yet they chose to only bet $20 on each of these vaccines, as opposed to no, you have about $100,000 in your pocket and none of it's yours. So go for it.
It's completely bizarre. Roughly, according to Politico, roughly 650 million of the 1.3 billion doses Pfizer says it can make in 2021 are already spoken for. Now, I mean, look, it's pretty simple math. If they say they can do 1.3 billion doses over the course of a year, and the first 650 million are spoken for, that means that they're not going to be able to get to the 650 million and one dose until June, right? I mean,
right.
If it takes you 12 months to produce 1.3 billion doses, you're not going to get to the doses that they have available now until June. And so the U.S. government today could say, okay, we're in. And Pfizer apparently will be like, well, yeah, okay, we'll get it to you. We'll start shipping in June. We got 100 million doses before then in the first tranche, essentially.
Enough for 50 million people, which is likely, I mean, ostensibly going to higher risk people, frontline workers, et cetera, although I'm sure the wealthy will wiggle their way into getting some of the earlier doses.
Moderna says it can make anywhere from 500 million to 1 billion doses next year. Which is a pretty wide flex there. But it's already promised 380 million shots to various countries. And they said just delivering those doses to governments have already ordered could take 6 months or more. So again, for the Moderna shot, and again, the U.S. government ordered 100 million. That's 50 million people. We may not see another dose from them until June in this country.
Because the Trump administration decided to not, bet enough money on either of these frontrunners here for whatever reason. It's not like this was coming out of Trump's individual pockets where I can understand why that guy might be cheap because he's in a lot of debt. No, this was the number one function of government, is to invest in these vaccines. And they chose to be cheap here for no reason, seemingly, except to, I don't know, favor AstraZeneca or adhere to conservative ideology and be a part of the cult of conservative economic policy. I don't understand.
Well, I mean, that's the point. We don't know what the answer is. And so an opposition party that was determined to highlight the mistakes that this Republican administration has made, regardless of the fact that they're not going to be here, would be calling for hearings right now to find out exactly why they chose AstraZeneca to bet on, why when the Pfizer people came and said, look, you should buy another 400 billion doses here. Because listen, we're looking at a situation right now in terms of what we know for proven vaccinations. We're looking at a situation now where we only can cover 100 million people in this country at best until June. And then in June, theoretically, we're still having to roll out both production and the shots. I mean,
which we don't have money for, which because Congress has been unable to act, there's no funding for vaccine distribution.
There is no support for municipal or state to actually distribute this vaccination in terms of money. I mean, this is a huge, huge mess up. And there is only so much that the Democrats can do to rectify this. But again, this is one of those perfect situations where it's like, make them pay a political price for their total incompetence. This is not an ideological thing here. This is basically saying
the airwaves. Like,
this is,
your case. And
the only way you do that is you call hearings. You call hearings. It's not enough to go on, the 6 p.m. show on a cable news network and say, from the rotunda and say, I think this is a bad idea. You need to start to investigate why this is for the American public. Really just shocking. And,
there's a reason that Pelosi put the progressives like Ocasio-Cortez on the oversight committee and stuff like that instead of, more powerful ones. She wanted their progressive aggression on oversight with the Trump administration. So use that to your political advantage.
Yep.
Use their bully pulpit in the way that you tried to maneuver things.
In the second half of the program, we're going to highlight a tweet thread by Katie Porter. And, the other day we were talking about, we were displaying Katie Porter's messaging about needing stimulus versus Nancy Pelosi's message, which is like, well, we don't have to worry about it as much now because Joe Biden's here. Again, Katie Porter has this tweet thread where she is out there calling out Mitch McConnell and making it very, very clear who is inhibiting us going forward and bringing the desperate needed help that folks have. She
must be in a safe blue district, right, Sam? She must just be one of those socialists in the squad who are in these city safe districts. Oh, wait, she's actually in a district that tilts red and has won re-election.
Right. And the thing is, she is putting on a clinic as to how you message these things. But of course, she is a freshman House member. And it's not going to get necessarily the same play in mainstream media as it would if we had this from the Democratic leadership. I mean, this is, and before we get any pushback on this, before you send me any emails, the bottom line is I understand it is the Republicans who are standing in the way of this. But I understand that because I do this professionally and I read every day and I read more than I would ever wish upon anybody about this stuff. The point is the opposition party needs to be out there and making it clear to as many people as possible. And the way that you do that is you hold hearings. The way that you do that is you force votes that they don't want to take in these instances. And the forcing votes opportunity, that passed, since the election. But there is no reason why there can't be hearings today. No reasons whatsoever. And also in the next half of the program, we're going to talk about Richie Neal, the congressman from Western Massachusetts, who part of the leadership, chairing the Ways and Means Committee, I think it is. And he is standing in the way of a bipartisan legislation that is a fix for surprise medical billing. It is stunning. And this is part of the reason why we had
have anything to do with that, Sam.
It's yeah, exactly. This is part of the reason why we were pushing so hard in his primary election, because regardless of what you thought of the other candidate, although I thought he was actually quite good, Morse, Richie Neal is standing in the way of help for people and working, apparently, it only seems like, for insurance companies and big corporations. But we will talk more about that in the future. If you missed any part of this show, check it out on Peacock tonight. You can check it out on the Choice channel, 5 p.m., 10 p.m., and later through the night. We will see you tomorrow.